Now let's talk about another big stink. I don't know whether it'll come to the same sort of scenes we saw at the UFC fight.
Wouldn't you love it?
But please welcome to Bill and Boz for the first time, hopefully not the last, the great man himself, the Daily Telegraph racing editor, Ray Thomas.
Welcome, Ray. Welcome.
Now,
Finally on TV to get the
I only invited on because he's got a blue jacket and a white shirt. So
good uniform.
And we must say, as Ray, we've had a lot of texts saying, when are we going to have a race expert on? So there you go, everyone. There you go.
And after punting for about 100 years, I'm still not an expert, so you're absolutely right. We need someone who knows what they're talking about, not a punter like me and a loser. Now, Ray, before we get on to what is going to be a fantastic spring carnival and a wonderful race on Saturday in Sydney, not to mention, of course, what's going to happen in Melbourne, and we've got Winks coming up going for the Cox Plate as well. All that we'll talk about, but just quickly, tomorrow night, the barrier draw for the Everest, and boy, oh boy, I can't recall horse racing causing such a stink in any state, let alone New South Wales, over a barrier draw. You probably would be best to explain in a nutshell what this controversy is about. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, no, I've done so many radio interviews today. It's incredible, but effectively it all started when Racing New South Wales wanted to use the Harbour Bridge as the barrier draw for the Everest. Great idea, it sounded fantastic, but the state government said, no, you won't be using the Harbour Bridge, and there was a bit of a stink about that. But then the state government came back to Racing New South Wales and said, you can use the Opera House. Up until Thursday, the Opera House, state government and Racing New South Wales had reached a tacit agreement about using the Opera House as a barrier draw. They just had to cross the T's and dot the I's and work out just what would be displayed on the sales, so to speak. But from Friday onwards, sort of all hell's broken loose. So the debate's just taken a whole different turn now. But as we stand tonight, the barrier draw will go ahead tomorrow. Essentially, boys, it's just about 5 minutes, 6 minutes of vision of the horse's colours and the barrier on the sails.
And that's a projection, is it, of what it would look like? It's not.
So if it's only 5 minutes, Ray, why have these people got a problem with it?
I don't understand, Boz. And more important, we've had similar, or rephrase it, we've had other sports use the Opera House as sails. We've had the Wallabies there, we've had the Ashes, for example.
Socceroos, we've had all of them.
One of the Opera House's major sponsors is Samsung. They use the Opera House sails to advertise their products. So,
what do you make of the Opera House argument, though? I suppose we've got to play devil's advocate here, and that they say they're happy with a limited display of colours for the horses, but not numbers and names, and they don't want it to be seen as promoting gambling. That's part of the argument they have against it, and they say it's a World Heritage listed building and that they've got to be cautious about how they use it. That's what the argument is.
I can understand that, and I can understand that the issue has polarised the community, given there is an anti-gambling sentiment element to the community. But at the end of the day, all that will appear on the sails, the jockey silks and the number and the Everest trophy. That's it. And that will be displayed for 5, maybe 6 minutes that the barrier draw for the 12 horses is done. And then there's a light show after that. So that is essentially it. By 7:40 tomorrow night, it'll be finished.
The
Prime Minister and the Premier of New South Wales have backed.
Yeah, it's got bipartisan support.
I think it's just common sense, really. Isn't it the richest race in the world?
It is the richest turf race in the world. And look, there's a lot of different arguments that have come out about it's not the Melbourne Cup, it's not this, it's not that. That's nothing to do with it. This is essentially a promotion which could potentially bring more tourism into Sydney, increased returns to the state government. There's only upside to this. I can understand elements of people who don't like gambling saying they don't want certain things. There's no odds. There's none of that being displayed. There's no advertising for any wagering operators. It is simply the jockey silks and the numbers.
My thought on it is this, and look, we look the same tonight. We've all got dark jackets on with white shirts, and if you're looking for diversity across a group, we're not it. Right, because we're
all punters.
Well, that's it. We're all sports lovers and we're all punters, so we don't see the problem with it. However, I was involved with a group of people over the course of the weekend, and of the 5 people within that group, I was the only one that was in favour of it. And you understand that, and for all the reasons that you said, Ray. So, you know, we need to be understanding of the alternate viewpoints that are out there. I'm still in favour of it. It's a public piece of property that's promoting something that's promoting economic value to New South Wales. So I see that as a natural link. I think some of the ways in which we've arrived at this decision has been a little bit distasteful, and as a result of that, I think that's why a number of people have engaged in the argument.
And the key too, Jimmy, it's really important, don't forget, that the state government overrides all of this. So people are saying, oh, you'll have certain food products or whatever else to advertise in the opera house. That will never happen.
course.
The state government will not allow it. So this is a promotion of an event.
That's
So
right.
That's what they're trying to do, and it's a massive distinction.
And just quickly, what's interesting too, you mentioned it has bipartisan support. Luke Foley, who's the opposition leader, the Labor opposition leader in New South Wales, has supported it too. But what's interesting is that a lot of the opposition, there are more than 150,000 signatures on a petition. I don't know if there's going to be a physical protest, Ray.
Some talk of it, yeah.
Is there? Because I think a petition, which is a hefty one, it's on tomorrow night, so I don't know what weight a petition would have. But the interesting thing is the debate in the media, both social and mainstream, has often fallen into political lines. You've got left versus right. You've also got the art crowd, pouring in to support the Opera House against the so-called sport or jock crowd, however you want to call it. It's interesting, the different factions that are opposed here, and I don't know how many of them actually know all the details.
And that's the key, Bill. A lot of people don't understand the full issue, and they don't understand that up until Thursday there had been that tacit agreement between the three parties. They were just trying to work out exactly what would be displayed on the sales. So then the debate's been hijacked.
And let's be honest, it was the Alan Jones interview with Louise Herron, the CEO of the Sydney Opera House, which has divided people because Alan Jones is a divisive figure. And that there's no doubt.
Personality-driven.
Exactly. And that's why we've seen them fall down left and right lines. The whole irony of it is, and Ray, you would know this, the fact that because they ran out of money when they were building the Opera House, they used to have a lottery to pay for it.
Yes.
That's the irony of the whole thing.
All right, let's talk about the race itself.
Again, just asking this, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I do believe that horse racing is part of the Australian culture.
It is.
Yes.
It's a racetrack everywhere you go.
It's many things to many people.
The biggest one of the biggest cultural figures, probably along with the Harbour Bridge, is the Opera House. I don't really see for 5 minutes why that is a problem to show off something that's the richest horse race in the world and that is part of your nation's culture. I don't understand why there's a problem with being proud about that.
The interesting thing is here, that's another aspect to it, because it actually puts, as sometimes the use of the whip and other allegations of cruelty to horses have put racing in the spotlight as a sport or a business, an industry. No doubt it rides on gambling. There's no one makes any casts any aspersions on that. But Clover Moore, for example, this is blatant commercialisation of Australia's World Heritage listed opera house for an industry notorious for damaging gambling and animal cruelty. So again, different aspects of the culture fall into line. Bob Hawke once said, you go to a racetrack, and I've been to plenty of racetracks, and you see a microcosm of Australian society.
Yeah.
The rich people are there and the poor people are there, and whatever you think of how that works and what it does to those classes of society, that's your opinion, you're entitled to it. But the fact is that all aspects of Australian society are involved in horse racing, like it or not.
And Bill, everyone's entitled to their opinion. We all should respect everyone's opinion.
And to sign a petition, no problem.
Exactly, we're all adults too. No one's saying you have to have a bet, no one's saying you have to have a drink, whatever. It's your choice, you're an adult, so you do what you want to do. And a lot of people like horse racing simply as a sport, and it is a fantastic sport. They don't have to gamble. So it's been an interesting debate the last.
Isn't it the third biggest industry in Australia?
It is, yeah. And employs over 50,000 in New South Wales alone and contributes nearly $250 million annually to state government coffers. So it's
I was about to say that in terms of the tax.
It's a massive contributor, yeah.
So 12 runners, $13 million, 10 Group 1 winners. The three place getters from last year are back. Wide open betting race, and I mean that as if you hate betting, I mean that in terms of how wide open the race is. We say that about rugby league and AFL as well. What are your thoughts? Who's going to win the thing?
Well, just for betting, for example, quickly, it's $7 each of three at the top of the market. Santa Ana Lane, Trapeze Artist, Vega Magic. 12-horse field. The rank outside is $17. Is that close? These are the elite of the elite. They're the best sprinters in Australia, plus the Irish Raider US Navy flag.
First imported horse. I know the race is only 2 years old now, but first imported horse to come.
And it's fascinating, trained by Aidan O'Brien, and there's no better traveller of horses anywhere in the world. He wins races everywhere. Or it was Dermot Weld.
Dermot Weld, sorry, but he has contested the Melbourne Cup though,
Aidan O'Brien. He's won a Cox Plate with Adelaide. Never had a runner in Sydney, so that's a coup in itself for Sydney racing to get Aidan O'Brien, the world's best trainer here, and Ryan Moore to ride. It is such an even field. Dare I say it, boys, the barrier draw is going to be very, very crucial tomorrow.
Where can we watch that, Ray?
Yeah, 5 to 8.
Why is that, Ray?
A few horses need to draw well, if that makes sense. A horse like Red Zell last year drew a soft gate. He's a brilliant beginner. He lobbed on the speed, didn't have to spend so much petrol, as we say in horse racing, but he didn't have to use much energy to get there. Had a lovely run sitting outside the leader, powered clear, too good. If he can draw a soft barrier again, given we're going to have a rain-affected track, he's right in the contest. Other horses probably need to draw a barrier to make sure they get the right run, but I was talking to Hugh Bowman today, and he said of this race, and it might be a cliche, will come down to who gets the right run because there's nothing between this field.
And Ray, explain to somebody who's a little bit ignorant when you talk about the barrier draws. What does that actually mean? Soft barrier, like soft draw.
Okay, well, for Red Zell, for example, a soft draw would probably be inside 6. So inside barrier 6 to gate 1. He's such a brilliant...
Those are the better ones to get.
Yeah, closer to the rail. He can jump quickly, find the rail, and that's the shortest way home if you follow the rail. And for a horse like him who races on the speed, if he can draw an inside barrier, he gets in that position straight away. There's other horses in the similar boat. If, for example, Red Zell drew gate 12, he's going to have to work a bit to get across, and that might expose him late in the race for a swoper. So it's a fascinating contest.
What's the Everest done for the racing industry, Ray? It's a massive race. I've seen a helicopter with this massive banner flying up and down the northern beaches for the last month promoting it.
Yeah.
It's captured my imagination. It's captured a lot of people that I know aren't into racing or haven't been into racing, their imagination. What's it done for the inside the industry when it comes to the Melbourne Cup has been the pinnacle, and now all of a sudden there's this Everest that everyone's talking about?
I've been covering the sport for 25 years for the Telegraph, and Sydney never really had much of a spring carnival. The Epsom Handicap was the last day, and it sort of ended, and then we had a spring champion day. It ended with a whimper. It doesn't anymore. The Everest is like this juggernaut. It just, the publicity it generates, it goes almost year round. $13 million in itself, that automatically grabs attention. It's all lead-up sprint races suddenly become important. You know, if a horse wins a good lead-up race, are you going to the Everest? At Royal Ascot this year, one of the first questions the English reporters asked after their English horses won, will you go to Australia for the Everest? It's going global in that respect in the racing world, and everyone's talking about it.
The thing you just said, it's the elite of the elite. That pretty much sums it up.
And the other thing that's unique about it too, and Ray, you'll probably be able to explain this better than I, but the fact that how you get into the race with the slot holders. So you own a slot, and then it becomes a negotiation. If you are the owner of or trainer of a very good horse, then you have to negotiate with a slot holder. So that's unique in itself.
When the great King's Trust is going to the Everest next year, you'll be driving a hard bargain, Jim.
Well, it's had a setback, Ray. It's another spelling.
We haven't got a lot of time, so we really want to talk about two quick things. One is Winks, obviously. You talked about getting the right run. And Huey Bowman, what a patient ride the other day. That was heartbreaking, or heart-thumping stuff.
The mouth, actually, as I said, I spoke to Huey today, and he admitted he wasn't in the right spot, back inside of horses, back last on the fence, coming into the straight. Flemington's a long straight, but what separates Winks from other horses, apart from the fact she keeps winning, is her ability to sustain a long sprint. She broke 11 seconds for 3 consecutive 200-metre sectionals from the 600. Horses can do that for 1 or maybe 2 sectional splits, but not for 3 in a row, and not at the end of 2,000 metres. She's come home in sub 33, and actually it was quite soft in the end. She cruised past them late. She's got that ability to accelerate so quickly and past top echelon horses and make them look like very ordinary racehorses.
Can you see any trouble for her in the Cox Plate in a few weeks?
No, just barring bad luck, and Hugh Bowman's managed to avoid that for 28 races so far. She's remarkable in herself, not only because she's such a great athlete, but she manages to avoid injuries and illnesses, little things that the malaises that affect other horses don't affect her.
And considering she gets back into races, it's astonishing that, and full marks to Huey too, because that helps.
And the point that Huey Bowman made after the race in his interview, and we spoke about it on radio yesterday, was he rides Winks with a bit of arrogance. And it's that fine line between arrogance and absolute confidence in the animal. And
he gets it right, doesn't he?
When those afterburners went on, when you saw that half a gap open up, it was unbelievable.
She is exceptional, and she's a real character. I'd love to get her on the show, but some
text here for Ray.
With all respect to you, Ray.
She'd make more sense than a lot of the.
I think she would. Yes, there's no doubt.
Ray, weather forecast for Sydney this week is looking better. Can we get back to a soft track, or will it be a heavy regardless? Hoping for a drying track. Go trapeze artist. Cheers.
We're all hoping for a drying track, just so then every horse gets its chance. If it's a heavy track, some horses will find it tough. Trapeze artist is right in the contest, Boz. He's a horse who peaks third up. He's had 2 runs back. He's third up into the Everest, and all his best performances throughout his career, horses tend to run to pattern, have been third up, and he's right on song.
And we talk about money. If Trapeze Artist wins this race, what's that horse worth?
He's already worth 35 million now. You probably take it up to 50 million if he wins. You know.
For a racehorse.
Wow, that's good.
There you go. We've got to go to a break, I'm told. So, Ray, thank you so
Thanks so
much.
much, guys.
And we will be getting you back in over the spring
Thank you so much,
as we
Ray.
go to Melbourne for the big races there too. So thanks,
See you
mate.
at the Everest, Ray.
Good on you, mate.
There he is, the great Ray Thomas. And you can expect Jimmy Smith to have the you-know-what out of his pants again on Monday morning.